Houthi rebels are alleging that Israeli airstrikes on Yemen have killed 9 people early Thursday. Al Masirah Television, the main media outlet run by Houthis, is reporting that 7 were killed in an airstrike on the port of Salif and 2 were killed in IDF strike on the Ras Isa oil facility. The strikes also targeted 2 central power stations south and north of capital Sana'a. Listen in.
Today, the IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructures in Sana'a, which the Houthis have been using in ways that effectively contributed to their military actions. Israel will not hesitate to act in order to defend itself and its citizens from the Houthis' attacks.
According to a fresh Pentagon report that details actions accelerating key areas of conflict with the US, China is expanding its nuclear force, increasing its military pressure against Taiwan, and strengthening its ties with Russia. A senior American defense official said that the impact is a bit of a mixed bag because while there has been progress in some programs, China has slid back in others. Israel has killed more than 45,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 100,000 in the 438 days of Israel's war in Gaza. In the north, Israeli forces have again attacked barely functioning Kamal Adwan Hospital. The hospital director has said that dozens of people have been wounded in Israel's latest strikes. The ICU caught fire, forcing it to go out of service. At least 38 people have been killed and 203 wounded in the recent Israeli attacks across Gaza over the past 24 hours alone. Israel has once again blocked the UN from reaching northern Gaza as international organizations have been urging Israel to end its blockade and allow aid deliveries to the area. The United States, joined by Arab mediators, has sought to conclude an agreement between Israel and Hamas to halt the 14-month-old war in the Gaza Strip. As per local media reports, Gaza ceasefire mediators are urging Israel to agree to the release of high-profile Palestinian prisoners in the next agreement's next stages. Sources close to the talks in Cairo have said an agreement could be signed in the coming days on a ceasefire and the release of hostages held in Gaza in return for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has reiterated that Washington remains quote-unquote hopeful of securing a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas before handing out his duties as President-elect Donald Trump's administration comes in. Blinken spoke at the Council on Foreign Relations, where he spoke about the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, as well as the future of Syria and the US relationship with Iran. Listen in.
Now is the time, assuming we get the hostages back, to move this to another place where they're not left holding the bag in Gaza. Because if they wind up holding the bag, they'll be dealing with an insurgency for years, and that's not in their interest. So Gaza has to be translated into something different that ensures that Hamas is not in any way in charge, that Israel doesn't have to be, and that there's something coherent that follows, that enables the governance, the security, the reconstruction of Gaza.
The United States has warned that Russia is close to accepting a nuclear-armed North Korea as Moscow and Pyongyang defend their growing cooperation. In September, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had backed North Korea's reliance on nuclear weapons as a foundation of self-defense. Russia views the notion of denuclearizing North Korea as a closed issue. Russia is using North Korean troops to battle Ukrainian forces holding an enclave in Russia's Kursk region. Now, this report comes only a couple of days after the first North Korean troop casualties were reported by the US and Ukraine in the war that the Russian war machinery has been carrying on. In a significant move towards improving ties, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met with Chinese Vice President Han Zheng in Beijing. Zheng said China and India should gradually resume institutional dialogue as well as exchanges and cooperation in fields such as economy, trade and culture to bring bilateral relations back onto the track of stable development. Now, this marks the first special representative level talks between India and China since December 2019. Several children have died during a stampede at a holiday fun fair in southwestern Nigeria. The incident happened at the Islamic High School in Oyo State, near the economic hub of Lagos. Security forces at the scene arrested the event's organizers. Children injured at the venue were rushed to local hospitals. Meanwhile, local media have identified the event's organizers as the Women in Need of Guidance and Support Foundation, which held a similar event for children last year. Listen in to what they have to say.
There's no way anybody in his right mind will organize an event of this nature without involving security apparatus. I mean, if people are very sane and they are alive to what is happening around us, you can't cramp 10,000 people, children for that matter, in a place and expect them to behave normally. You will be a person to really think like that. So we are not exonerating anybody who is connected with this organization event. But government is awaiting report from the security agency.
At least 11 people have died after a fire engulfed the entrance of a cafe in the Vietnamese capital Hanoi on Wednesday. The blaze blocked the entrance to the cafe and emitted thick smoke into the three-story building where over a dozen people were inside. The fire was extinguished after an hour. 7 people were rescued and 11 bodies were later brought out on stretchers. Police said the victims died of smoke inhalation. Officials confirmed that a 51-year-old man has been arrested in connection to the blaze. The pilot and co-pilot died after a private plane crashed after landing at an airport on the outskirts of Buenos Aires. The aircraft had flown in from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. People inside a building struck by the plane were rescued by firefighters and were in a stable condition. Others in surrounding homes were also evacuated as crews worked to extinguish the fire. An investigation has been launched into the cause of the accident. A year into a plan to rescue Cuba's economy from a crisis gripping the island with inflation, dollarization, and a growing illegal currency market, the government has acknowledged that the expected results have not been achieved. The Cuban government is now promising to ease exchange rates based on supply and demand. Listen in to what the Cuban government had to say.
Tenemos la insatisfacción de que no se ha avanzado lo necesario, sobre todo en aquellas cuestiones que demanda nuestra población. Y ese nuevo régimen cambiario asume una mayor flexibilidad en el tipo de cambio al establecer que la tasa de cambio debe variar cuando se modifican las condiciones de oferta y demanda. Es un proceso complejo, pero va a ser un mecanismo flexible que se va a implementar, que evidentemente va a salir el banco con una tasa al día, va a hacer sus operaciones. Esto va a estimular que las personas se sientan atraídos y con más confianza a ir a vender sus divisas al sistema bancario.
The U.S. has reported its first severe human case of bird flu at Louisiana. The patient is in critical condition and has been hospitalized after suspected contact with an infected backyard flock. California, the most populous state in the US, has declared an emergency over the H5N1 virus as it spreads more widely in dairy herds. The virus has infected dozens of farm workers this year alone. A London judge has ruled that British police can seize nearly £2.7 million from Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate. The seizure is over unpaid taxes. The decision comes from Westminster Magistrates Court on Wednesday. Now, the Tates are accused of not paying tax on £21 million in revenue from online businesses. This revenue spans from 2014 to 2022. The funds in 7 accounts will now be forfeited. Judge Paul Goldspring stated that the Tates were required to declare and pay taxes in Britain and Romania. The brothers have been living in Romania since 2017. Not only this, they are also facing human trafficking charges in the country, which they deny. However, both the brothers have served prison time in Romania earlier as well. Satellite photos of Vanuatu, a town in Mayotte, reflects on the scale of devastation caused by Cyclone Shido that struck the French territory on Sunday. Cyclone Shido was the deadliest storm to have hit the territory in nearly 100 years. Although many ignored the initial cyclone warnings, believing the storm wouldn't perhaps be so extreme. More than 1,500 people have been injured and close to 200 people remain in critical condition as we speak. Authorities fear tens of thousands of people have died. A Royal Australian Air Force plane has arrived in Vanuatu. The plane is loaded with aid packages and personnel to help with the relief effort after a violent 7.3 magnitude earthquake hit the South Pacific island nation on Tuesday. Now, the empty plane then airlifted Australian citizens from the capital, Port Vila, and tourists back to Australia. The US Federal Reserve has cut interest rates but has suggested it would make fewer rate cuts than expected in 2025 amid questions over its fight to bring down inflation across the world's largest economy. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, said inflation had been quote-unquote stubborn, but also insisted that the central bank believes its rate hikes would continue to erode the pace of price rises. Indian rupee hit its all-time low on Wednesday, pressured by strong dollar demand from importers and likely outflows from local equities. The rupee fell to 84.9550 against the US dollar before closing at 84.9525, down 0.07%. Benchmark Indian equities indexes BSE, Sensex and Nifty 50 ended lower by about 0.6% each. The Bank of Japan has kept interest rates unchanged, but one dissenting board member's proposal to push up borrowing costs showed the bank remains on track to tighten policy early next year. As widely expected, the 9-member BOJ board voted 8-1 to keep its short-term policy rate unchanged at 0.25%. In a sign, policymakers preferred to tread cautiously amid uncertainty over US President-elect Donald Trump. Japanese automakers Nissan Motor Corp and Honda Motor Company have confirmed that they are discussing closer collaboration but denied reports of a merger. The ascent of Chinese automakers is rattling the industry at a time when manufacturers are struggling to shift from fossil fuel-driven vehicles to electric vehicles. Now, relatively inexpensive EVs from China's BYD or Build Your Dreams, Great Wall and NIO are eating into the market shares of American and Japanese car companies in China and elsewhere across the world. Plane manufacturer Boeing has resumed production of all airplane programs that had been halted by a machinist strike in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the plane maker has confirmed last week that it restarted production of its best-selling 737 MAX jetliner in early December. In November, 33,000 factory workers ended a 7-week strike. The workers were demanding a 40% wage increase and the restoration of a defined benefit pension they lost a decade ago. Boeing has now resumed wide-body programs in Washington that were impacted. TikTok and its parent company ByteDance have asked the US Supreme Court to block a law requiring the app to be sold or banned by the 19th of January over national security concerns. The justices will hear arguments on the 10th of January but have not issued an injunction yet. Now, the case stems from a lower court ruling that upheld the law. The popular social media platform has more than 170 million users in the US alone. Apple is reportedly in talks with Tencent and TikTok owner ByteDance to integrate their AI models into iPhones sold in China. Now, this follows Apple's recent rollout of OpenAI's ChatGPT in Siri globally, enabling users to get assistance on phones, photos, presentations, and documents. Apple briefly fell out of China's top 5 smartphone vendors in the second quarter before recovering in the third quarter. The Dutch Data Protection Authority has fined Netflix $4.98 million. The fine is not for properly informing customers about its use of personal data between 2018 and 2020. An investigation launched in 2019 found Netflix's privacy statement lacked data. The DPA said that the customers were not clearly told how their data was being used. Now, Netflix has since updated its privacy statement and improved transparency. However, the company has objected to the fine. The Association of Tennis Professionals has paid $1.3 million to 26 players in 2024 under its baseline program, which guarantees a minimum income for the top 250 ranked singles players. Launched as a 3-year trial, the program will boost payouts next year. Christopher Nolan and his wife, producer Emma Thomas, received a knighthood and damehood for their services to film at an investiture ceremony at the Buckingham Palace. Now, King Charles awarded the filmmaking couple.
A little less nervous, having been here once before, because obviously coming to the palace the first time was very, very daunting, but being back here was quite special. But doing this together is really unusual, remarkable, an incredible honour. Well, we're working on something. We haven't said what it is yet. We're not quite ready to say what it is, but soon. And we'll start filming in the first quarter of next year. So we're getting there.
Before I went to school, mechanic school, I accidentally I saw culinary school, which I didn't know what it was at that time. It's people in a white shirt and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, let me see what it is. And I went in, and I was intrigued. I got hooked in the first when I first saw it. So curiosity, killed the cat. I thought I could always go back to mechanic. So okay, let me just drop everything. Let me try this cooking first. But from the first day until now, I haven't looked back. I just, I'm here now. So.
Timothee Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan reunited at a photo call ahead of an event at British Film Institute. The duo worked together on films Lady Bird and Little Women. Chalamet is starring as Bob Dylan in the upcoming A Complete Unknown, and also as Paul Atreides in the epic sci-fi Dune Part 2, while Ronan is starring in The Outrun and Blitz.